All right, breaking news. The MAGA civil war has hit a melting point as Ben Shapiro is now pushing back against the far right extremism that has been, bubbling up and exploding within the movement over the past few years. Now, about a week ago, Tucker Carlson released a 3-hour cozy interview with Nick Fuentes, a genuine neo-Nazi, far-right white supremacist. And Tucker didn't push back. He was cozy. He was friendly. Ben Shapiro is somebody who has long hated Nick Fuentes because Nick Fuentes has been openly anti-Semitic and hateful directly towards Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro, of course, being proudly, openly Jewish, and Nick Fuentes has taken advantage of that and said a lot of disgusting things. I mean, in this battle, I take the side of Ben Shapiro, which does not happen often, to say the least, I promise you. But Ben Shapiro has been going back and forth with Fuentes for a while, so it is essentially his worst nightmare to see Nick Fuentes elevated to the highest levels of right-wing media by getting a 3-hour friendly sit-down softball interview with Tucker Carlson. Or it might have been 2.5 hours, 2 hours, somewhere around there, but it was a long, friendly interview, and now Ben Shapiro is not happy. Just because Ben Shapiro now releases a 41-minute video called Tucker Carlson Sabotages America, that doesn't mean that he is blameless for the rise of far-right extremism or normalizing the breaking of these norms over the past decade. But that is a separate topic. I do want to talk about the civil war that is broiling because just to take it a step back, just to zoom in on a micro level before we go to the national civil war, there is a right-wing filmmaker named Dinesh D'Souza. I'm sure you've heard of him. He's been popular in the space for a while. So Indian hatred, just for context, Indian hatred in the Republican Party has been skyrocketing due to people like Nick Fuentes. Due to Nick Fuentes, his Groyper movement, and the far-right people. They have been, just talking about Indian people, the Indian population, Indian immigrants in very heinous ways. So that is actually bleeding downstream to Dinesh D'Souza, an Indian conservative right-wing filmmaker. He made a tweet on October 21st, and he said something, who cares what he said? Then someone responds, "You're Indian. You made nothing. You are nothing and devoid of creation. Your ilk has been a race of slaves for hundreds of years, and even after being given a chance, you prove what worth you are, devoid of actual thought." And Dinesh responds, "In a career spanning 40 years, I have never encountered this type of rhetoric. The right never used to talk like this. So who on our side has legitimized this type of vile degradation? It's a question worth thinking about." So Dinesh D'Souza is trying to shirk himself of all responsibility, push the MAGA movement away from all responsibility. He's like, I have never seen this type of rhetoric on the right before. Well, I got one of my most viral tweets because I responded, "Dude, you literally tweeted this right after." The hour after Dinesh made that tweet, he made a post of Zohran Mamdani as a plane going into a tower that says New York City. And he said the difference is this time New York might be asking for it. Like, dude, the call is coming from inside the house. When you're asking who on our side has legitimized this type of vile degradation, and you're wondering, who has allowed this type of racism in the party? Number one, people like you who say this. Number two, people like Donald Trump or J.D. Vance or people who don't provide any sort of moral clarity in the Republican Party. People like Stephen Miller who doubled down on the racism. To continue, Dinesh D'Souza then said yesterday, in response to Vivek Ramaswamy, Vivek, another right-wing Indian politician, posted a photo with his kids, and he got a bunch of hate underneath. Not coming from liberals, not coming from left-wingers, he got a bunch of hate coming from the far right. Dinesh responds, "Look at the abuse Vivek is getting for posting an innocuous photo with his boys. This is the shit show that Heritage and Tucker have brought upon us. If this continues, I would not be surprised to see the mass desertions of blacks, Latinos, and other minorities from the GOP. Unreal." And we're already seeing a lot of that. We're already seeing black conservatives or Latino conservatives or people online who are minorities making videos like, "Hey guys, I'm not really that comfortable with Tucker Carlson talking to Nick Fuentes, who doesn't want me to exist, who doesn't want my presence in the country." Ben Shapiro, of all people, comes out swinging, and he provides the moral clarity necessary. I mean, he should have done this a few years ago, but the problem is just hitting this boiling point due to Tucker Carlson's platforming and mainstreaming of Nick Fuentes. And Ben Shapiro then lays out his argument. It's a 41-minute video. I cut out some parts that we'll skim through. We'll talk about his beliefs. But overall, he does a good job here of debunking and exposing Tucker Carlson and Nick Fuentes. Most of Ben Shapiro's video is actually just a clip compilation of Nick Fuentes and Tucker Carlson saying crazy stuff about women, Jewish people, gay people, all of the above. But let's start off here with his thesis.
That topic is the fragmentation of the political right. That fragmentation is being caused purposefully by a splinter faction of people led by a young man named Nick Fuentes. They call themselves the Groypers. They are white supremacists. They hate women, Jews, Hindus, many types of Christians, brown people of a wide variety of backgrounds, blacks, America's foreign policy, and America's Constitution. They admire Hitler and Stalin. And that splinter faction is now being facilitated and normalized within the mainstream Republican Party. The main agent in that normalization is Tucker Carlson, who is an intellectual coward, a dishonest interlocutor, and a terrible friend. And Tucker Carlson last week was aided, abetted, celebrated for normalizing Nazism within the Republican Party by the mainstay organization of the traditional right, the Heritage Foundation.
I made a video about this the other day, but this is what really blew it up. Kevin Roberts, the guy who spearheaded Project 2025 with the Heritage Foundation, came out. And this guy has a bunch of sway within the Republican Party. He's like the backbone of the Republican Party at the Heritage Foundation. Not him in particular, but the organization that he represents has been helping guide conservative policy for decades. So it's important. He came out, and rather than saying, Nick Fuentes is a despicable human being who needs pushback and we abhor everything he says, Kevin Roberts muddied the waters. He muddied the waters and didn't provide moral clarity. He said, this is a valid part of the conservative movement. It's just discourse within the conservative movement.
To understand just what Tucker did here, we must actually examine what Nick Fuentes says on his show and has said for almost a decade, because he was asked precisely 0 questions about any of what you're about to see by Tucker Carlson. Nick Fuentes says women want to be raped.
A lot of women want to be raped. And when I say raped, I mean like, that sounds bad when I say it like that. But there's like a lot of women that really want a guy to beat the shit out of them. But also they have to pretend, but part of it is they have to pretend like they don't.
That guy's never actually had a girlfriend, by the way. He doesn't know that.
Nick Fuentes believes that the Jews start all the wars, that perfidious Jews in positions of power ought to be killed, and says the Jews are filth who have to be removed from the country.
And once again, remember who is responsible for it all: the Jews. They are responsible for every war in the world. It's not even debatable at this point. This has nothing to do with oil. This has nothing to do with democracy. This has nothing to do with liberal internationalism. We are at war with Iran because they pose a threat to Israel's hegemony. That's why we're bombing their nukes, to pave the way for regime change so Israel can dominate the region, because that makes them the most powerful they can be.
There is an occult element at the high levels of society, and specifically among the Jews. So many of the people that are perpetrating the lies and the destruction on the country, they are evildoers. They are people that worship false gods. They are people that practice magic or rituals or whatever. And more than anything, those people need to be, when we take power, they need to be given the death penalty.
Okay, so that's just a few clips. I'm promising you right now, I'm not lying when I say that about 20 to 30, 35 minutes of Ben Shapiro's video, it's just playing clips of Fuentes and Tucker Carlson saying heinous stuff. There is no lack of clips, mainly of Fuentes saying this type of stuff. And he said right there, regarding Jews, he called them essentially just saying that they're an insidious force, but he specifically says they need to be given the death penalty when people like him take power. And there you see the problem. Not just for Ben Shapiro as a Jewish man, but for anybody in the United States who cares about anything resembling equality. Kevin Roberts, the Heritage Foundation, Tucker Carlson, by extension, I will argue J.D. Vance, Donald Trump, all of these people have created the permission structure for someone like this to gain power, gain more and more power. Not just online power, but there is now a pathway for him to gain institutional power. And if you are sitting there and you think that it's funny that he hates the Jews or whatever, I can almost guarantee he will come after you in some form. I see people in the replies who are Muslims sometimes, cheering Nick Fuentes on because he doesn't like Jewish people. He doesn't like Muslim people either, I promise you. To all of the people, this is a very small minority, but to the people online who are like black Trump voters or black gripers, this does exist. He also doesn't like you. He doesn't even like you if you're white and Christian, very likely. He doesn't like anybody. He is a hateful, vile person, and this is not what America is about. He is fundamentally anti-American. And honestly, it's going to sound crazy, but Ben Shapiro is a more productive, better American than Nick Fuentes will ever be.
But most of all, Tucker Carlson acts as an ideological launderer for other people's evils. Tucker Carlson says many inflammatory things, always buying back just enough of it to appear as though he's not saying what he's clearly saying. He's a master of gaslighting. Tucker Carlson, for example, would never say out loud what Nick Fuentes does. He wouldn't say the things many of his guests say. And so instead, he acts as an ideological launderer. He takes other people's hideous ideas, he softens them, he treats them with love and care, and then he provides them with a massive signal boost. He isn't merely talking to people in good faith, of course. He's promoting certain people and ideas and attacking others.
This is very spot on. This is what Tucker Carlson's been doing for a while. A lot of right-wingers do this. Like Ben Shapiro is not, just because we're taking Ben Shapiro, or I'm taking Ben Shapiro's side on the issue of hatred and anti-Semitism and all this, does not mean I agree with him. This man has laundered a lot of extreme ideologies, like downplaying the elector scheme or election denial coming from Trump and allowing him to get back into power.
So, for example, he'll ask a series of wildly obsequious questions to Nick Fuentes. He'll even let Nick Fuentes' support for Joseph Stalin slide.
It's actually funny. It was December 18th. I remember because that's an important date to me. And it's Joseph Stalin's birthday.
Oh.
I'm a fan.
You're a fan of Stalin's.
Mm-hmm. Always an admirer. But we don't need to go into that, I guess. Like,
well, that's, okay, let's get back to it. We'll circle back to that.
But he will grill Ted Cruz about the population of Iran. Tucker Carlson will have on Vladimir Putin's evil anti-American mouthpiece, Alexander Dugin.
Okay, so then they play a bunch of Tucker Carlson clips. And, Ben Shapiro's point is right here. He didn't even circle back. Tucker never circled back and asked Nick Fuentes about Stalin, but he'll grill politicians, rightfully so, by the way, but he'll grill politicians on like random numbers, which that's fine. You can do that. But you're not going to grill Nick Fuentes? That's the problem. This cozy-ass interview.
All the while refusing to say the sorts of things for which Fuentes takes slings and arrows. And so Fuentes unleashed on him as a fraud and also as an expert on gaslighting.
Tucker is like the goat of gaslighting. But unironically, he goes up at the memorial and said, Charlie Kirk told the truth. You know who else told the truth? Jesus. And you know what happened? He got killed by Jews. And people said, so are you saying that the Jews killed Charlie Kirk in the way that they killed Jesus for telling the truth because they hate the truth? And Tucker said, I never said that. You're crazy. I never said that. Everyone eats hummus. What do you mean? Everyone runs Jerusalem. But I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Tucker Carlson says, I have so many trust funds, I never have to work.
Okay, so essentially, Nick Fuentes hated Tucker Carlson.
And then, after years of brag like to hunt and fish,
Nick Fuentes is absolute.
I am them.
Ben Shapiro continues to play a string of clips of Nick Fuentes shitting on Tucker Carlson. And, Nick Fuentes hated Carlson. Carlson was losing his grip to part of Nick Fuentes' base. There's a broader calculation on Tucker Carlson's part, but it's all just, let Ben Shapiro explain.
Well, there was one big problem for Tucker Carlson in all of this. Nick Fuentes is absolutely 100% correct. Tucker is a coward, and Tucker's audience, much of which he shares with Nick Fuentes, knows it. And so Tucker hit upon a final stratagem. He let Nick Fuentes cuck him. He brought Nick Fuentes on to legitimate his ideology. He signal boosted Fuentes, glossed him, shined him, presented him to the world, all in order to protect his own reputation.
This is exactly it. Cucker Carlson is what we can call him. Tucker got cucked. I'm going to leave it there. But that is an insight on the MAGA civil war that is currently brewing. We'll continue to cover it on the Adam Mockler channel. Make sure you drop a like. Make sure you subscribe. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.